A rookie K-9 police dog's airport chase. A twist you didn't see coming. When rookie K-9 Benny is separated from his handler during a routine airport sweep, he unintentionally uncovers a dangerous criminal with a hidden agenda. As Benny's instincts lead him through the chaos of the terminal, a shocking twist reveals the thief's true identity, and a threat far more sinister than anyone anticipated. With time running out and danger closing in, Benny's determination becomes the airport's last hope. Can Benny catch the criminal before it's too late, or has he walked straight into a trap? The airport was alive with motion. People hurried by, their shoes clicking against the polished floors, voices rising in a constant hum of chatter. Benny, a young German shepherd with fur as golden as the morning sun, sat next to his handler, Officer Ryan, at the edge of the bustling terminal. He was ready. His tail wagged uncontrollably, brushing against the floor with an almost rhythmic excitement. The thrill of being at the airport filled him with energy, even though his paws were firmly planted on the ground. Benny wasn't just any dog. He was in training to be a K-9 officer, and every day with Officer Ryan made him feel closer to his dream. "Ready to work, Benny?" Officer Ryan's voice was steady, calm, but Benny could tell he was excited too. He could feel the bond between them, the way Officer Ryan trusted him, relied on him. Benny was more than just a companion. He was the partner who would one day solve cases, catch criminals, and serve justice. Benny let out a quick, excited bark in response. He was more than ready. Their task was simple, or so it seemed. A routine sweep at the airport for any signs of drug trafficking. Officer Ryan had done this countless times, and Benny had trained for it with precision. But today, the airport was anything but simple. The smell of food from the various restaurants filled the air: hot dogs, fresh pizza, and something that smelled like chocolate chip cookies, and it all made Benny's nose twitch. Every corner held something new, something exciting to sniff, and every passing person was a potential new friend. There was so much to take in, so much to explore. Benny's training kicked in, and he started scanning the crowd. He focused on the smells of the people, the baggage, the floor. His nose twitched at the scent of something unfamiliar, a sharp tang of cologne mixed with something he couldn't place. He sniffed the air, drawn in by it. Officer Ryan, walking with purpose beside him, noticed the change in Benny's stance. "Focus, Benny," Officer Ryan muttered, but Benny was too caught up in the strange new scent to pay attention. With one sudden yank of his leash, Benny broke free, his excitement spilling over. He bolted, tail wagging furiously, following the trail that his nose had found. Officer Ryan's voice echoed in the distance, calling for him to stop, but Benny didn't hear. His senses were overwhelmed, and all he could think about was the scent. It was close, so close. He dashed past travelers, dodging carts and rolling suitcases, barely avoiding collisions. His paws skidded on the smooth floor as he turned corners and ran between legs, his eyes wide with the thrill of discovery. Officer Ryan's shouts were lost in the roar of the airport, and Benny's paws carried him farther and farther away from his handler. The crowd seemed endless, their voices rising and falling in a constant wave of noise. Benny's heart pounded as his body pushed through the chaos. He was lost, confused. Where was Officer Ryan? His frantic sniffing grew stronger, and soon, the scent led him to a small jewelry store tucked away in a corner of the terminal. The store was sleek, with polished glass counters reflecting the bright lights above. Benny's nose twitched as he stepped inside, his eyes darting to the man standing by the display, his fingers nervously tapping against a glass case. The man's cologne was unmistakable, the same sharp scent Benny had been following. Benny trotted closer, his paws light on the marble floor. He sniffed again, his nose practically touching the man's leather bag, which was slung over his shoulder. The scent was unmistakable now, metallic, almost like something sharp, mixed with the overpowering perfume. The moment Benny's nose brushed against the bag, alarms went off, loud and jarring, filling the store with a shrill wail. The man stiffened, his eyes narrowing as he turned swiftly, pretending to ignore Benny. Without missing a beat, the man moved past the confused dog, slipping away toward the exit. Benny, oblivious to the alarm or the man's intentions, was only concerned with following the scent. His paws patted softly as he trotted after the man, his nose high in the air. Benny's ears perked up when he heard the sounds of footsteps fading away. He followed, tail still wagging. But as the man turned the corner and headed toward a gate, Benny's nose led him to a strange, large door that didn't smell quite like the rest of the terminal. Without thinking, Benny pushed through the gap in the door, his paws now stepping onto something new and cold, metal, smooth, and strangely fragrant with the faint scent of oil and steel. The door clicked shut behind him, and for a moment, Benny was surrounded by a strange quiet. He padded along the narrow aisle, sniffing the air. The floor vibrated under his paws, and he could feel the hum of the machines around him. It was a different place, one Benny had never been before. A muffled announcement echoed overhead, but it made no sense to him. He was still following the trail. Suddenly, a loud noise shook the air. Benny's paws slipped slightly as the floor shifted beneath him. The plane was moving. He had unknowingly boarded a flight. He looked around, his eyes wide. There were people sitting in seats, some staring at him in surprise, while others laughed. Benny, however, paid them no mind. His nose was still locked on the scent, leading him forward as the plane began to taxi down the runway. The plane rumbled, a low, steady growl of engines vibrating through the floor and into Benny's paws. The scent trail was stronger now, swirling around him in the cool air. It was sharp, metallic, mixing with the faint perfume of the passengers. Benny's ears flicked as the sound of the plane's engines grew louder, a soft, rhythmic roar that seemed to pulse with every beat of his heart. His paws, though not yet steady on the unfamiliar ground, carried him through the narrow aisle, weaving between rows of seats, brushing against fabric and smooth plastic, his nose leading the way. He squeezed between seats, his fur brushing against the legs of passengers who stared at him with surprise. Some chuckled, others gasped, but Benny was oblivious to it all. His mission was clear in his mind, though he didn't truly understand the weight of it. All he knew was the scent, the magnetic pull of it that guided him down the narrow aisles and deeper into the plane's belly. Above him, the overhead lights blinked in rhythm with the plane's movements, casting sharp shadows against the passengers' faces. The scent seemed to twist with the sharp hum of the engines, like a tangled thread caught between the noise. Benny's nose twitched in frustration as he tried to follow the trail, dodging an arm that stretched out, narrowly avoiding an elbow that jutted into his path. It didn't matter. Benny was closer now, so close that he could taste the metallic tang in the air. He growled softly, his attention fixed entirely on the man sitting several rows ahead. The crew started to notice him. A stewardess leaned forward, her eyes wide as she saw the dog weaving through the passengers. She opened her mouth, ready to call for help, but before she could make a sound, Benny darted under her seat. She froze, her hands still in midair. The plane gave a soft lurch as it ascended, and Benny clung to the cold metal of the floor beneath him, his paws spread wide, gripping the floor as the plane climbed into the sky. A faint taste of salt filled his mouth as the air shifted, the crisp, dry texture of the pressurized cabin playing tricks with his senses. "Is that a dog?" someone behind him asked, chuckling. The stewardess stood still, her eyes darting from Benny to the rest of the crew, unsure what to do. Benny's tail brushed against the seatbacks as he made his way forward, still following the scent. His paws slid on the smooth surface as the plane leveled off, the roar of the engines pressing against his ears. Back at the airport, Officer Ryan had realized Benny was missing. The moment he'd noticed the absence of his partner, panic had gripped his chest. He reached for his radio, his voice sharp as he contacted airport security. "Have you seen Benny? He's gone. We need to find him now," Officer Ryan said, his voice urgent, his heart already racing in worry. His eyes scanned the crowd, looking for any sign of the excitable German Shepherd. The search had already begun, but Benny was nowhere in sight. Security teams flooded into the terminal, their eyes scanning the crowd. The airport's tracking system had picked up Benny's caller signal, and soon, a full-scale operation was underway. Yet Benny, blissfully unaware of the havoc he was causing below, continued his pursuit. Meanwhile, the man with the metallic scent on the plane seemed completely unaware of the chaos happening on the ground. He sat in his seat flipping through a magazine, his hand still gripping the edge of the seat in front of him. He glanced over at Benny, but his eyes passed right over the dog, never noticing the determined, unrelenting pursuit happening just a few feet away. Benny padded carefully forward, his nose glued to the air. He could almost taste the scent now, so close. The passengers had grown used to him by now. Some watched with curiosity, others with annoyance, but none of them suspected that the small, golden dog had a mission far beyond the flight. A faint trail of the metallic scent led him toward the rear of the plane, where a small door opened into the restroom. Benny hesitated at the threshold, his ears flicking back as the scent seemed to get stronger. Without hesitation, he pushed through, his paws making no sound against the thick carpeting as he followed the trail deeper into the plane's maze of corridors. The descent began, slow and steady. Benny's paws slipped slightly on the slanted floor as the plane lowered its altitude. His body shifted with the movement of the aircraft, but his focus didn't waver. He had to find the man. The plane began to slow as it approached a smaller airport, its engines whistling as it cut through the clouded sky. Benny's eyes darted to the windows. The sharp blue of the sky outside contrasted with the soft gray of the terminal below. The plane touched down with a soft thud, and the sound of the engine softened. Benny's nose was still locked on the scent. As the plane came to a halt, Benny's chance arrived. The door opened, and a gust of cool air filled the cabin. Benny's tail wagged once before he bolted forward. He squeezed between the seats and dashed toward the exit, his paws a blur against the smooth floor. He slipped through the open door, landing softly on the tarmac below. The man hadn't noticed. Benny's paws hit the ground with a quiet thud as the cool air of the smaller airport filled his senses. He could still smell the metallic scent. He was close. The man, now several paces ahead, walked briskly toward the terminal. Benny followed, his movement slower now, but his focus razor sharp. He had to keep up. He couldn't lose him now. As they entered a narrow corridor, Benny's senses flared. The man glanced over his shoulder, his eyes narrowing when he saw the dog. Benny froze for a moment, but quickly resumed his pursuit. The man quickened his pace, his steps more erratic now, and Benny's instincts kicked in. A security guard passed by, and Benny's bark rang out, sharp and clear, cutting through the quiet of the terminal. The guard turned, his eyes locking with Benny's as he followed the dog's lead. The thief broke into a run, but Benny was quicker now, his feet light against the cold tile floor. With one last powerful bark, Benny cornered the thief in an isolated section of the terminal. The cool, metallic scent of the airport filled the air, mingling with the faint tang of old carpet and the distant echo of rolling luggage. The terminal was quieter here, away from the bustle, where only the sharp click of heels on the smooth floor could be heard in the distance. Benny stood firm, his muscles taut, his paws grounded in the cold tile beneath him. His eyes, clear and focused, fixed on the man trapped against the walls of a narrow corridor. Benny's growl rumbled deep from his chest, low and commanding. There was no escape. Officer Ryan's footsteps echoed off the walls, growing louder as he closed the distance between him and Benny. His uniform rustled slightly with each stride, and his boots left a soft thud against the floor. He arrived just in time to see the thief glance over his shoulder, eyes wide with panic. His back pressed against the cold wall as his chest heaved in shallow breaths. The man was cornered. The air around them was thick with tension, each passing moment dragging like thick molasses. Benny's fur bristled, the scent of fear now mingling with the metallic trace of the jewels still hidden in the thief's bag. He could feel the pulse of victory in his bones, though the danger was far from over. Officer Ryan stood tall, his eyes never leaving the thief, but a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Benny had done it. The thief, still breathing heavily, made one last desperate move. "I'm just a businessman," he blurted, his voice strained. "You don't know what you're dealing with here. Let me go, and I'll make it worth your while. We can work something out." Benny didn't flinch. His nose twitched as he caught a whiff of something familiar again, the scent of metal, cold and sharp, mixed with the faint perfume he'd first detected. His instincts had led him this far, and now they told him the thief was lying. With one quick step, Benny pressed forward, his nose moving closer to the bag slung over the thief's shoulder. The stolen jewels, hidden and unnoticed by the security cameras, were there, evidence of the crime the thief thought he had covered up. Benny growled, his ears flattening against his head as he sniffed the bag again, this time with certainty. The thief's expression twisted with frustration, his eyes darting toward the exit, calculating his next move. But before he could act, the telltale click of a metal mechanism echoed from his jacket. Benny's sharp eyes locked onto the weapon now partially exposed in the man's hand. The thief's fingers curled around the cold metal of a gun, the barrel pointed directly at Officer Ryan. "You're making a mistake," the thief hissed, his voice tight with panic. Without a moment's hesitation, Benny's instincts snapped into overdrive. The sharp scent of gunpowder mixed with the musty air of the terminal as Benny launched himself forward. His paws hit the ground with swift determination, and in a flash, he was there, teeth bared, his body a blur of fur and muscle. His powerful legs propelled him straight toward the man's outstretched arm. The thief's reaction was too slow. Benny's teeth sank into his sleeve, yanking it backward just as the thief's finger began to press the trigger. The gunshot rang out in the confined space, but it missed, ricocheting harmlessly into the air. The man's arm jerked, and the weapon slipped from his hand, clattering across the floor. Benny stood his ground, his fur bristling, eyes fierce as he blocked the man's escape. The thief stumbled back, his breath ragged, his face pale with the realization that he was now completely surrounded. Officer Ryan stepped forward, his voice calm but commanding. "It's over," he said, his hand reaching for his radio. "We need backup." The thief's hands went up, surrendering as the reality of the situation set in. He was caught, his stolen goods exposed, his plans shattered by a dog too determined to fail. Benny's growl softened, but his gaze never left the man, a silent promise that he would not be allowed to flee. Soon, airport security arrived, rushing to the scene. The thief was handcuffed, his bag containing the stolen jewels passed over to the officers. Benny, his chest still heaving from the brief chase, stood by Officer Ryan's side, watching as the criminal was led away. The scent of victory hung in the air, but there was no time for celebration yet. "Good job, Benny," Officer Ryan said, crouching down and placing a hand on Benny's head, his fingers brushing through the dog's golden fur. The simple praise was enough to make Benny wag his tail in quiet satisfaction. It wasn't just about catching the thief. It was about proving himself, about showing that, despite his mischief and mistakes, he could be relied upon when it counted. The terminal was slowly returning to normal. The buzz of distant conversations, the sounds of luggage being rolled, and the hum of overhead announcements filled the air. Benny's ears flicked at every sound, always alert, but for now, his mission was complete. The airport was safe once again. Officer Ryan led Benny out of the terminal, his proud smile still lingering as they walked toward the exit. The warm sunlight filtered through the glass doors as they stepped into the open air, Benny's paws clicking softly against the pavement. "Let's go home, Benny," Officer Ryan said with a chuckle. The young German shepherd's tail wagged enthusiastically in response, but there was something else behind the playful movements, an understanding, a recognition of the bond between them. Benny had proven himself today. He wasn't just the mischievous puppy who liked to chase after every scent. He was a K9 officer in the making.